Thanks so much for joining us today for today's Lunch with Haley. As we mentioned on the previous dialogue here, it's going to be a nice conversation between the three of us. We have some slides prepared for you, but mostly we're going to be talking about digital marketing in ways that you can maximize your ROI, your return on investment with digital marketing. So on today's call, you have myself, Brad Biley, you have Matt Lozar, and Brad Smith. Brad, why don't you tell us what it is that you do at Haley Marketing and how you help our clients on a day-to-day basis?
Sure thing. So I oversee the digital side of things here at Haley Marketing Group and work closely with our product managers, making sure that we're aligned appropriately, making sure that our products work nicely together, making sure that we're driving ROI and we have the right processes in place. Really love working on overall marketing strategy, especially on the digital side for our clients, and looking at where the industry is heading. So a lot of times we'll look at some other progressive industries, we'll look at some of the top players in our industry, and look at what's working and what isn't, and think about what we can incorporate into our products and our strategies to drive more results for our clients.
And Matt, how about you?
Sure, Matt Lozar, sixth year at Haley Marketing, and last few years have really started to settle into the role of overseeing our recruitment marketing program, which we'll talk about a little bit later with the 4 pillars of recruitment marketing. Career sites, social recruiting, and employer branding has been a part of Haley Marketing, for the 25 years in some capacity that Haley Marketing has been in existence, but job advertising is an area where we've really focused on and tried to grow in the last 3+ years. And it's been great to oversee that department and its growth since 2019.
And I'm Brad Biley. I work with our digital marketing team, helping our clients overcome their marketing challenges with digital marketing, whether that's blogging, content creation, social media, email newsletters, PPC, SEO, working very closely with the team to make sure that everything we're doing has a purpose, making sure that everything we're doing is driving towards those business goals. So that whether it's on social or an email or a piece of content, it's not just a throwaway piece of content. It has value and it's driving that business closer towards organizational goals. For today, I'll be moderating today's Lunch with Haley and elevating some questions from not only the chat window, but also the presentation to both Brad and Matt. One more time, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use that window. We'd love to hear what's on your mind and we'd love to address those for you. So we get started here. You saw it when you signed up for Lunch with Haley. On that landing page, there's a quote from Beth Comstock that said, "Be where the world is going." When we look at digital marketing and when we look at marketing collectively, we constantly need to be aware of what's on the horizon so that we can make sure we're doing everything that we can to be mindful of those changes, whether that's in the digital landscape, whether that's in the traditional marketing landscape. We need to know where the world is shifting to so that we know how we can play to those standards. We need to know if the tactics we're deploying are working, or if we need to pivot to something else and try a different strategy or a different tactic. But having our eyes on the horizon at all times, whether that's by looking at our goals and our organizational challenges and what's on that 6 to 12 month horizon, or looking at what's on the horizon just for digital or marketing in general, we need to be incredibly mindful of that. And Brad, I know you wanted to add an additional layer here, so why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, sure. So, I love sports, and I'm always reminded, and I'll paraphrase a kind of a quote from Wayne Gretzky. He doesn't skate to where the puck is, he skates to where the puck's going. So as marketers and as sales professionals and staffing leaders, we need to think about where the workforce is heading, where our organization's heading. And if we can all start to collectively think like that, we're going to drive better results. We're going to up our game. We're going to increase our value, move up the food chain, and provide better solutions. And this week is Staffing Industry Analysts Executive Forum. So one of the keynote speakers there, Charlene Lee, did a session yesterday that talked about something called disruption mindset. And I think it ties into this quote from Beth Comstock really well. And really, it's thinking about where everything is heading. Where's the industry heading? Where's the employment market heading? Where is our economy heading? And we need to be forward thinking about that so that we can proactively adjust what we're doing, how we're approaching our marketing, how we're approaching the market. and make sure that we're adding value. So one of the keys that Charlene mentioned, which really stuck with me, was that we need to chase our fastest customers. So what that really means is thinking through those clients that are really pushing our boundaries. We need to find out what they're focused on. What are they looking towards? What are they planning for? What are some of their hot topics? What's keeping them up at night? So if we can identify all of those things and be more so on the leading edge, the rest of the market's going to start to follow. So there's always leaders, local leaders, industry leaders in the market. We need to find out what they're doing and where they're going so that we, again, can adjust our workforce strategies and our marketing strategies to cater to them. And if we can be on that leading edge, we're going to set ourselves up for success. We're going to build a following. We're going to build content. We're going to establish ourselves as a leader. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is thinking about just that.
And Brad, at Haley, we look at two models pretty regularly when we think through digital marketing and really when we think through marketing in general. I want to pass this one to you. Walk us through what's on the screen here and walk us through really why it matters.
Yeah, I love this model, and they're kind of the same charts on left and right, but just presented in a slightly different way. So at the top of our funnel is awareness. So what do people really care about? We need to think that through. We need to be a listener. And then we need to make sure that our brand is in front of people. And then we move to interest. So once we know what some of those big issues are, the big headaches, we need to think through how we can create an emotional appeal there. And for me, I think this is going to be vitally important over the next year in candidate recruitment. So we all know that there's talent shortages. That's not a secret. Recruiting has become tougher and tougher, and Matt's going to talk about that too in a little bit. But we need to think through how we can create interest. So if the viable candidate pool is shrinking, how can we grow that? How can we create interest? How can we turn those passive candidates into active job seekers? We need to constantly be thinking about that. We need to think through how we can turn non-users of staffing or casual users of staffing into high volume buyers. And that can all be done through interest. I was just talking with Eric Gregg over at Clearly Rated yesterday, and he shared a study that I think ties into this nicely. So they looked and surveyed people on what the lowest salary people would take for a position was. Okay, and they gave an answer. And then next, they presented a company that had just an amazing culture, a whole bunch of fringe benefits and opportunities. And what they found was people were willing to take a lower salary than they had just said that they would take a few minutes before. And they considered the opportunity because of how amazing the culture looked. Okay, what's great here is that they created interest. They created some desire. So we need to think through what we can do to generate those job seekers, to generate those leads, to make people who never thought of using our services say to themselves, boy, I can't get by without using their services. So when you're thinking about creating that interest, think about things like remote work. It's one of the most important things people are looking for right now. So talk with your clients. What can you do to look at remote work options, look at flexible schedules, talk about upward mobility, talk about life balance. So really work with your clients to build that interest side of things. Okay, once you've created that interest, then we want to transition to desire. And we want to continue to work people down this funnel. So we need to get super focused on what it means to the end buyer or the end candidate. So what can we do to create that desire? We need to talk through what remote work affords candidates, what they'll be able to do with a flexible schedule. We need to look at what we can do to get moms and women to return to the workforce. They've been hit hard. So let's think all of those things through and mix that into our content, into our messaging. And finally, action. This is where we really want to drive people to, whether it's getting them to complete a form, submit an application, submit a job order. Think through what we can do to drive these people further down the funnel and really reduce friction. So, on the candidate side, what can we do to streamline the intake process? Can we get and shorten our application? Can we improve completion rates? So think through all those things. Think through where the red tape lies right now in driving conversions. Walk through all of those things yourself. And then, Brad, I'm going to kind of steal your line here, but you constantly say that every post should have a purpose. And that purpose should really tie to action. So I'm going to throw it over to you and ask you to explain what you mean by every post has a purpose.
So specifically on social media, every post has to have a purpose. And the thought behind that, and really the methodology behind that, is that we in staffing cannot compete with bands, in sports teams, entertainment. We need to make sure that we have a purpose for every single piece of content that we put together. Just as those teams, those bands have a purpose for their content, we need one for ours. And we don't want to just have content that's a throwaway, right? We don't want to just shout into the clutter that is social media. There's already enough noise and enough clutter on a site like Facebook. We want to be incredibly mindful with what our post is. And with that, we want to make sure that the post has an expressed action. What should the individual do when they see it? Is it a funny picture of a dog wearing socks and they're just supposed to laugh and click like? Or are we trying to drive a candidate back to your job board where they can apply? We need to make sure that there's some sort of, well, what do I do now? Matt, you look like you had something to say near that interest phase. You all set on your end, or do you want to add some thoughts in there?
I can add in when Brad did a really awesome job with the ADA model, but employer branding is something we're talking about a lot in culture. And I had a conversation with a trucking client in California, super hard industry to fill, trucking, CDL, Class A drivers in California. And they're telling me how it's a little bit of culture, but drivers are taking jobs that pay a little less if the schedule is better and if it's no touch delivery, where they don't have to, their daily tasks and duties are different. So that was interesting to me is, employer branding, the culture of that company. People don't want to work overnight or be there from the 7 p.m., 7 a.m. shift as much. They want to be the maybe 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. shift or something different. But that's the employer branding part, the interest to say, hey, I have a Class A truck driver job, home daily. You put that right in the job title. That can move someone down the funnel to get them to become a candidate for your company.
All right, guys, we walked through ADA, we walked through the funnel, we talked about going through that path. What are some fundamental strategies for sales lead generation? Brad, I'm going to pass it to you to start here. When we think about generating sales leads, there's really digital, and then there's your traditional marketing. There's that inbound, there's direct, there's different forms here. For sake of this presentation, we were going to talk on digital. Now, if you're listening to Lunch with Haley today and you want to learn about additional ways to drive those sales leads, I would encourage you to go to lunchwithhaley.com. Check out the webinars on demand where we've talked about other best practices. But for sake of today, Brad, walk us through really the PPC and the SEO element to get us started.
Yeah, sure. So, Brad, as you mentioned, there's kind of two different sides. There's what we call integrated direct marketing, and there's digital and inbound marketing. Today, we're just focused on digital and inbound, but I want to stress that these aren't silver bullet strategies. They're tools within our marketing tool belt. So they should be used in accordance and in connection with other direct outreach efforts. And then they can make those direct outreach efforts that much more impactful. So I'll focus on two here: PPC, pay-per-click advertising. We're going to dig into some unique things that you can do with this, but overall, I see this kind of working in two areas. One, under the awareness and interest side of things. So we can use display advertising to get our brand in front of the exact right audience. We can use Google's ad network. We can use Facebook and Instagram and really target the people that we want to get in front of and make sure that they're aware that we're here and generate some interest. So think about what's in it for the end buyer or the end candidate and build that interest. Then we can also look at desire and action. So we can use search PPC strategies. So when somebody is going to Google or Bing and they're typing in what we call a buyer intent keyword, if they're specifically looking for the services you offer, if they're looking for an employment agency, if they're looking for a job, if they're looking for a staffing partner or a recruiting partner, we can buy those keywords and drive them over to your site where they can take action. So those are kind of our two very high level strategies on the PPC side. Now on the SEO side, I think search engine optimization is going to explode over the next year or two. Not that it hasn't over the last year or two, but I think we are going to see a shift towards more companies getting aggressive with search engine optimization efforts. And part of the reasons for that is that some of these other areas are being flooded with content. Search gives you a unique opportunity to get in front of somebody that's already a little bit deeper in the buying cycle or the evaluation cycle and drive that traffic over to you. People also trust inherently top search results. So it's a great opportunity to build visibility and build credibility if we can get to the top of search results for a wide variety of terms. And again, we're going to dig into some very unique and cool things that you can do in each of these areas to drive more leads and improve ROI.
Matt, talk to us about content marketing and really what content marketing is and the value that it provides staffing firms.
Yeah, content marketing, it's positioning yourself as a thought leader, creating really good content for your website to use as that hub. And it's a long-term play, and it goes hand in hand with SEO, as search engine optimization, as Brad was talking about earlier, and really creating value that you can share to your audience. And staffing is unique in that there's two different audiences. There's a client audience and a candidate audience, so content is very different. But the value there is building that foundation for everything you want to do to share to prospects or your current clients on the business side, or on the candidate employee side, to active candidates, to passive candidates, to your current employees out on assignment. All of that different content you can make through blog content. It's evolved into audio and video, which we'll get into a little bit, in the different ways you create the content, then the different delivery methods which continually evolve in social media. As Brad really oversees here, is a great delivery method for that content in the content marketing piece.
Social to me is the glue that ties it all together. You have PPC, which is very direct, or brand awareness. You have that sort of encompassing umbrella. You have SEO, and maybe that's long form content or building services pages. Content marketing in its very nature is creating blogs or videos or resources. Social is the way that you get all of that coming together and then distributed to your target audience. So whether it's content, whether it's building your reviews into great graphics, whether it's building your employer brand and what makes you unique by showcasing your team or your skill sets, or showing off your candidates or the top jobs you're trying to fill, and encompassing who you are as an organization. Social to me is that glue that brings it all together. And I think when we look at digital marketing and specifically social media as we continue into 2021, that social media footprint is going to continue to grow. It's going to be looking at ways that we can further tie everything together to create one nice strategy that brings it all into that one social umbrella. All right, thanks, guys. How about this question? Should we connect with existing clients? So when we think through digital marketing, oftentimes, and I know I hear this all the time, and please correct me if you're not, but I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like you are as well. When I talk to clients and they're looking at prospecting, it's always going out and finding new business, finding new potential individuals to speak with. What's often overlooked is that you've already earned the trust of current clients. How can we do more business with those individuals? How can we grow our business year over year by leaning into the current clients we already have and simply doing more with them? So Brad, get us started here. And if we think through connecting with our current clients or connecting with existing clients, walk through what Haley Marketing is doing in Q1 in 2021 here.
Yeah, Brad, thanks. We did an analysis and found that we have great relationships with so many of our clients, but the ones where we have the strongest relationship, we have consistent phone conversations with them, consistent meetings. We build that face-to-face recognition. through Zoom or voice recognition through phone calls. And we looked at that and said, you know what? It's been a really challenging year in 2020. The industry was hit hard. We need to make a concerted effort to reach out and talk with as many of our clients as we can. And we have clients in a range of different service areas. We have some where we're extremely actively involved in every aspect of marketing, and we have some that might just use a job board or one of our other tech tools that we don't have direct connection with day in and day out. So we wanted to make sure that we reached out just to see how the industry was doing. And the conversations we're having are amazing. We're finding out what some of the biggest challenges are. We're finding out what the hot buttons are. We're learning from many of our clients where they're having success, what areas are growing, what are some of the great tips and strategies they have for recruiting. So we're trying to see where the puck is going, not where the puck is right now, right? And we're trying to build more loyalty. We're trying to make sure that we drive more ROI. We need to make sure that our marketing efforts are aligned with their overall goals and where their company is headed. So these conversations have been absolutely tremendous. And we didn't go into it with the goal of generating sales. We went into it with the goal of driving better results for our clients. Now, sales have come out of that, but that's because we're having more strategic conversations. So I think there's so much value in reaching back out and building those relationships. And from a marketing standpoint, it could just be as simple as having a phone conversation and making sure that you're connected to them on social. And now that you're sharing all this great content, they're going to see it. And something as simple as that can have a big impact.
Matt, we've talked about database management on Insights quite a few times. When you think about database management and nurturing that client list, calling every single client seems like a daunting task. Let's take the other side of that and take that more digital. What about email or texting, or maybe it's PPC? How else could we supplement those phone calls with another initiative? Go ahead.
You answered the question. You stole the answers there for me, Brad.
Man, I can't let you have all of it, man.
No, but I'm going to dust off an old stat here with, we did an analysis a long time ago, but I'm sure it still holds because the principle holds there. Returning website visitors convert twice as much as new website visitors in the staffing industry. And in preparing for the webinar today, we talk about engaging your current clients or current candidates a lot, but think about if you go to a restaurant, a hotel, a vacation destination, it's really easy for us to go to the same place that we really like more often. We know what we're getting. We try new experiences, restaurants, hotels, vacation destinations, of course, but there's a little bit of uncertainty in there. So from that recruitment side, if you're able to reactivate that database, especially the ones that are qualified, the A's and B's, maybe not the C's, but if you can reactivate them through hot job emails, sending them emails with all of your openings once a week. You can send them text messages because text messages have 90+% open rates, and automate that through a system. If you can upload your candidate database into Facebook, and if that email address in your ATS matches an email address in Facebook, that can become an audience you target. So it's reactivating that database you've paid for. And yes, it's great and it's thrilling to go out and try to get new business, new candidates. But when cost per application on Indeed is up 27% in the calendar year, it's a great time to reevaluate and see what makes the most sense for you to achieve your recruitment goals. And reactivating that database, the database management is one really effective way to hopefully fill all those job orders you have open right now.
And one thing I love about making phone calls and then pairing that with email, text, PPC, social PPC. I know both of you sit on a marketing roundtable, and I can't remember the stat that you've told me before, but how many touch points is it for somebody to convert? Was it 18, 20, something like that?
Yeah, so it used to be 8 to 10, and now with the pandemic and everything else going on, we're at like 18 to 22 different touch points. So most salespeople are giving up after 3.
Sure.
So, we need to look for technology and tools to supplement our direct personal outreach, because there's no way that you can have, that you can make 18 or 20 calls to every single candidate or client. So we need to make sure that we leverage all the tools available to us.
All right, guys, let's move to the next question here. What are the fundamental strategies for recruiting? Matt, Director of Recruitment Marketing over here at Haley Marketing, you oversee what are considered the 4 pillars of recruitment marketing. So walk us through what those are and how they can help anybody on the call today.
Absolutely. Yeah, at Haley Marketing, we developed the 4 pillars of recruitment marketing because recruiting changes. And it's a common example, but 2020 was the perfect example of that, where January, February, your recruiting strategy was different than March to May, March to June, and then it evolved again Q3, Q4, and now it's continually evolving. So a couple of the pillars might stand out at different times where you need to emphasize them, and not just focusing on one pillar, by focusing on 2, 3, 4 pillars, you set yourself up for success to connect with those candidates. And like I say, it starts with the career site. That's your front door. It was your front door 5 years ago, but it really became your front door now as we accelerated our transition into a virtual hybrid world a lot faster than we thought we were. Like, today's the day, March 11th, when the world kind of changed, which is really ironic, but that's when a lot of things changed here. And the career site, it's your land. You're not renting that, you own that. So having a really good front door to your company with your brand, employer branding coming through here, it can be a really good place for your imagery, the tone, everything that works together. And then to make it easy for people to convert. If you're spending a lot of money on job advertising, it could be social recruiting, just on your marketing and recruiting internally, your team is spending time talking to candidates, driving them back to your website. If someone gets to that website and doesn't know what to do, that's wasted money. You're wasting your spend, your investment in your company. So that's where the career site plays really well. Shifting over to job advertising, that one's pretty straightforward, where you're advertising on the job boards, but taking it to the next level through data-driven research, through looking at your sourcing. If you can leverage programmatic technology, is one way to help you automate a lot of that and use the technology to your advantage, so your team has more time to recruit and doesn't have to focus on posting jobs, taking them down, looking if a job has 10 applications. You leverage software to automate a lot of the other functions companies are automating as well. The social recruiting side, obviously, Facebook's 15 plus years, LinkedIn's been around for an extended period of time, and they work together really well. We talked about a little bit with the content side, but on the recruiting side, Facebook Jobs is continuing to grow, and it's picking up steam, it feels like, from my seat, especially on the commercial staffing side, healthcare side, where the Facebook Jobs in the marketplace, it's free to post, and I think people are thinking about that as almost another job board. They're thinking about it, Indeed and ZipRecruiter are 1, 2, and then a lot of companies are fighting to be number 3, and it almost feels like Facebook's sneaking up and charging into that spot. And that's just one way to recruit actively. Obviously, the content on your page, if it's blog posts, if it's videos, Brad talked about testimonial graphics earlier, which incorporates social recruiting and employer branding together. And as I've talked to, your employer branding's really made its way into the other 3 pillars. It's on your career site. You control that imagery, the copy on your site. It comes through in job advertising, the tone you write posting, your star rating on Indeed, your star rating on Glassdoor, Google, at Facebook, et cetera. And then social recruiting, obviously, you can really control the messaging if it's with brand ambassadors, user generated content, and showcase your company in the right light based off of Brad Smith's example earlier. If you're competing with someone down the street for the same job or the same candidate, and maybe your pay is $1 less, but if your culture really shines through, that candidate could want to come work for you because of that investment in your branding that shines through all the other different pillars of recruitment marketing.
And Matt, when we talk about where things are heading, where that puck is traveling to, those first two pillars to me are where things are really heading quickly. Job advertising. I mean, obviously we've all used job boards for a really long time, but you mentioned programmatic, and we're going to see a rapid shift there. And if you're a staffing agency that isn't exploring that, you really need to think about that. Costs are going up. Supply is going down. So we need to be more strategic with our spend, and programmatic can help you do that. So definitely look at that. And then on the employer branding side, we really need to create more job candidates. We need to get people to understand why they would want to work for a staffing agency, why these opportunities are amazing career moves for them, and really educate the market on the value that staffing provides. So for me, those two pillars are really where things are going, and we need to be aware of that.
Excellent, guys. All right, let's get to the next question here. What is account-based marketing and influencer marketing? From account-based marketing and influencer marketing, the term influencer marketing is all over social media. When we think about influencer marketing, it's pairing your brand with someone who has influence, so that when they reach out to their audience, their communities, they automatically have a level of credibility with those individuals, so that when they bring your name into that conversation, there's a level of credibility that brings in your company. Brad, walk us through what account-based marketing is.
Sure. Account-based marketing is looking at those organizations that you really want to do business with and doing some due diligence, really digging deep to find out where they're headed, what are their goals, what are their biggest challenges, and then building very specific content, case studies, direct outreach around their issues, their problems, their organization. So it's really taking content marketing to the next level and making it hyper specific and hyper focused on a single account or a group of accounts that fall into a single category. And there's some amazing things that you can do. Then, you can target individuals through digital marketing tools, through PPC that work at that organization. You can hit people at different levels and in different areas of the organization. So instead of reaching out to one target in a company that you want to do business with, you're reaching out to 10, 15, or 20. And what's going to happen is they're going to talk internally. And that's great. You might get referred down to somebody else or up to somebody else. And that's a great position to be in. So where we see this really come into play is identifying those top 20, top 50, top 100 accounts in your market and developing specific digital and offline marketing tools and tactics and strategies to go after them.
It's creating that web. And we had said that it's 18 to 20 touch points to get somebody to actually pick up the phone and have a conversation with you. So what are you doing to make sure that you're nurturing that along the way? Are you just having 3 phone calls and then giving up on a prospect? Or are you surrounding it with pillar content, with PPC, with email marketing? Brad, I want to pass back to you here from a pillar content standpoint. Walk us through what that might mean and what that might look like, and give us a couple examples that you might have worked on or projects that you're aware of.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of this is going to fall into kind of our SEO talk a little bit, but pillar content is really looking at a core topic and then digging deep into that core topic. So where a traditional blog post might be 300 or 500 words, a pillar piece of content or a long form piece of content might be 2,000 or 3,000. And it really digs into that overall topic and breaks that topic up into subcategories. And when we talk about SEO, we'll talk about how important that is. But a great example of this, Robert Half does an amazing job at this. They put out some great content, great white papers that dig into a specific topic. Haley Marketing Group, we use this. If you go to our website and look at our free resources, our freebie section, you'll see this all over the place. We have ebooks. We did one on SEO. We have some on websites, on social media. Really digs deep into a specific topic. Right now, we're working on one on remote work for one of our clients. So there's a whole bunch of different areas that you can really focus on. But when you're out there having conversations with your clients and talking to them, find out what their hot buttons are. And then when you hear that repeatedly, that's a cue to say, hey, I need to create a long form pillar piece of content around this topic. Again, look at your fastest moving clients, see what they're interested in, and then build your content strategy and your pillar content strategy around those things.
Thanks, Brad. All right, guys, next question here. Do you know any innovative approaches to SEO and PPC? Brad, I know we were just talking about pillar content and thinking through how long form content can have SEO implications. And I guess I softballed you a question, maybe half a slide too early here, but walk us through what's new in SEO and PPC. And again, why should we care?
Yeah. All right. I'm going to start with PPC. So I alluded to this earlier, but when we look at pay-per-click advertising, we see kind of two distinct paths. One is awareness and interest. So I like to think about this as almost like a digital billboard. So we've mentioned numerous times that you have to have, 20 impressions with people. This is a great opportunity to use technology to do that. So it's really focused on building brand awareness, whether that's on the lead gen side or the recruiting side or both. But we'll use Google's display ad network. So we'll look at local sites like newspapers, we'll look at job sites, YouTube, just thousands of different websites, and make sure that our digital billboard, our brand, the reason that somebody would want to work with us or for us, we need to get that message repeatedly in front of people. So we also leverage social advertising. So we might use Facebook or Instagram to identify the exact right target audience we're trying to get in front of and make sure that our brand is continually in front of them. So we've got clients that are using this strategy. They're getting hundreds of thousand impressions each month for a few $100s. So it's really cost effective and a great way to supplement your sales efforts and make sure that your sales team is in front of people consistently. And then we can use the messaging too, like we discussed, to create interest, create those job seekers that are maybe passive and turn them into active seekers. And then the other side of PPC for me is that desire and action side. So to me, this really plays into people's search behaviors. So they're going to go to Google or Bing or somewhere else and specifically look for the services we offer. So when somebody's looking for an employment agency or a staffing company in our market, or looking for recruiting tips or best practices, we want to buy those keywords, get in front of those people, and drive that traffic back to our website where they could take action. So those are kind of the two paths we take on the PPC side. Now on the SEO side, there's some really cool things that we're doing right now. And I'm going to kind of give you the secret sauce here on driving search results for your staffing company. And there's kind of three areas that I'm hyper focused in right now. I just put up a blog post on our website about this too. So if you want more detail, you can go there. But number one, we need to use data. Data's our friend. So I use Google Search Console all the time. So we're looking at keywords and content that is already getting some level of awareness. So maybe we're ranking in the 5 to 20 slots in Google. And then we're going to work backwards to improve it. So we're going to go to that page and embed more keywords, embed more related, semantically related terms. And overall, we're going to improve our ranking there. We can also look at click-through rate and adjust things like meta titles, meta descriptions. And what we're going to find is that we're going to improve our rank. We're going to go from that 15 slot to the 10 slot to the 5 slot to the 1 or 2 slot. We're going to get a lot more traffic that way. Two, which we discussed a little bit, is pillar content. So again, long form content, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 words. We're going to dig deep into a topic and we're going to look at subtopics. And Google and Bing love this because they're going to what they call semantic keyword search. So if you want to rank for a topic like employment, you have to also mix in words tied to hiring, recruitment, staffing, staff aug. We need a variety of different terms. So a long form piece of content lets us have a core topic and then subtopics to really drive that visibility. And creating this content has been really beneficial. I just did a report for a client and we helped them grow their search traffic by 240% over the last year. And that's by writing good quality content, long form content. So, it takes a while for this to take traction, but Now they have 4 or 5 pieces of long form content from the last year. Each one's driving anywhere from 2,000 to 12,000 visits every single month. It's really, really impactful. And then the last really kind of interesting or innovative thing that we're looking at doing on the SEO side is pirating the competition's traffic. So just like we're looking at our own website data to try to find out what's working, we're looking at competitor data. So we use a third-party tool called SEMrush, and we're going in and looking at competitors. Maybe we'll pick 2 to 3 direct competitors, find out what pieces of content are getting the most search traffic, and then we're going to reverse engineer that. So we're going to write a better, more authoritative piece of content. Over time, we're going to outrank them, and we're going to steal that traffic. So, and not just steal, but we're going to earn that traffic. So those that's really kind of the key and where I think SEO is going. It's getting super focused. It's tying in content and adding more value. I think if you do that, you're going to be set up for a lot of success in the digital space.
Brad, how often does a company need to evaluate their website? When you think through a site audit from an SEO standpoint, let's say I just had a website launched 6 months ago, a year ago. What's the timeline? How often should I be looking at those keywords and manipulating them and maximizing them?
I mean, a website's a living, breathing thing. I think we get lulled into this concept that, hey, once we develop the website, it kind of ends there, and we got to a point where it looks great and it just runs. It's not the case anymore. It's not where marketing is heading. So we constantly need to be looking at these things. We need to look at Google Search Console all the time. We need to look at user metrics on our site. If we find that we're getting a lot of traffic over to a page, but the bounce rate is extremely high, over time, Google's going to pick up on that. They're looking at user metrics, and our rank is gonna fall over time. So, we constantly need to be looking at what's happening, what's going on. I would say at least look monthly. For our clients, when we're doing this, we're looking a lot more frequently. So we want to make sure that somebody owns that, whether it's outsourcing that to a company like Haley Marketing Group or having an internal owner. Somebody needs to constantly be looking at these things and adjusting.
Perfect. Thanks, Brad. Matt, anything you want to add on the SEO PPC side?
No, I'm just taking notes.
I think I am too.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our next question here then. What are some new tools that leading staffing firms are using? Who wants to start?
I can start here. We'll give Brad a break after his education and SEO and pay-per-click. I'll start with, I don't know if chatbots are new tools, but I think they're continuing to become more present in the industry. And there's a wide range of what a chatbot is. There was a big push on artificial intelligence. It felt about a year or two ago, whatever that means. And to have a chatbot that's artificially intelligent is a very expensive investment. It could work well. And I think where we've seen a lot of success, even with ourselves at Haley Marketing, is the chatbot on our own website, which isn't, a high-level artificial intelligence. It's more of a guided chatbot, where when someone sees the chatbot for the first time, we ask them, are you looking for help with sales or support? Which is our 2 primary business goals a lot of the times is, do you need help with one of our current products or services, or are you looking for more information about our products and services? And from a sales perspective, and then we generated 84 leads from that last year and 16 so far this year. And it guides you through some questions, predetermined questions. Say, okay, I need help with sales. What are you looking for? Is it content marketing, digital recruitment, etc. And you need to set that up so it helps answer the questions for your candidate, or for your website visitors. There's obviously some other options you can do on the candidate side to where maybe help someone find a job or schedule an interview or whatnot, and that gets a little more in depth. But I think the balance and the challenge with this new technology is the need we have for an immediate answer versus also the need to talk to someone who's an actual human. So being able to find that balance is a challenge and something you need to test.
I love the thought of adding a chatbot to a website for the reason being you don't know when someone is going to come to your website and want information or want to reach out to you. Even if you think about your team now, in an 8-hour window of their day, how many hours, minutes are they available for a random phone call? Now, yes, if they're working on something, maybe they can be distracted and pick up that call and speak to a prospect or speak to a candidate, but they also have their core responsibilities, right? Your chatbot is always working. And it's not just fielding one call at a time, it's working for everybody and it's constantly firing. I love that thought, Matt. And you started talking about this balance of customization and automation. And that's something that I've become incredibly focused on and incredibly passionate about. When we think about customization and automation, I don't think that it's an or statement. I think it's an and statement. We need a balance of customization. We need content that is customized. We need marketing that is customized. And we need to supplement that with content that is automated. We want to make sure that the automation looks great, functions great, does what it should, while it's also being supplemented with customization. So for me, when we think about this new tool that leading staffing firms are using, it's understanding that automation and customization go hand in hand. It's not one or the other. It's working almost like a I don't know, they're working together, I guess, for lack of better words. Brad, what do you think? When you think about new tools that leading staffing firms are using, what are you seeing?
Yeah, kind of building on that automation, Brad, I think candidate engagement platforms, the Senses, the Herefishes, redeployment improves dramatically when you're using it. Assignments extend, retention goes up, completion rates are higher. So I think there's a lot of value there. And I love that idea of automating, but having that human element there. I think that's key. Another thing that we're seeing is voice search. So normally we wouldn't necessarily think of that, but voice search now is gaining a ton of traction. So I just saw a stat, 41% of US adults use voice search at least once a day. And if you notice, it's being built into different operating systems. Windows 10, their search bar, the Windows taskbar, 25% of searches conducted there are now voice search. So not only are people using it on mobile or their smart speakers or other things, but they're using it on their desktop or the laptop. What's interesting to me is where these voice searches are pulling results. So Alexa, Siri, Cortana, they're all pulling things from Bing, and Android obviously uses Google. So when we're thinking about voice, we have to think about both search engines there. And one of my tips here is really just, thinking through what common questions you get asked from candidates and clients, and write really simple blog posts about those questions. Take your FAQ section on your website, break each one of those questions into its own individual blog post, strip out all the BS, like the intro paragraph, everything else, just simply answer the question in a list format. And that is a great, simple way to increase your presence for voice search.
I think another thing to add on top of that is make sure that your hours and your location are all updated on Google My Business. Make sure they're updated in Bing's platform. Make sure they're updated on your website. I use and I can't say it out loud, my Amazon device, because she's sitting right in front of me. We have probably 5 or 6 of them throughout the house. I mean, every room, and I use it consistently. I can only see that 41% number going up drastically in the next year or two. And it's not for sake of being lazy. It's sake of multitasking. It's you're walking around your house, you're doing something else, and you have a thought on your mind, you have a question. It's just so much easier having that virtual assistant at your fingertips or at your disposal all day. Matt, I want to talk to you. I know that we had a note here about job board mailings in terms of new tools and new software. Walk us through how we can further leverage those top jobs or those category mailings to drive better response.
To me, the big takeaway here is, I don't know if I consider it new, but we felt it was important to include in this part of the webinar with when we're advertising jobs on Indeed and ZipRecruiter, let's say, or Career Builder, Monster, and someone applies on there, uses that quick apply process, it goes into that database. So we'll hold that thought, but also think about the person that applies to your career site on your website and goes to your database. So you have your unique database. If you send out a category mailing of your latest admin jobs, your latest healthcare jobs, to the people interested, only your jobs are showing up. Only your hottest jobs, your newest jobs, your featured jobs are showing up. On the flip side, we circle back to that database in Indeed and ZipRecruiter. That same candidate could get an email from a job board or a very similar job, but also your competitor's jobs are in that same email. So it's something to keep in mind. It's something, to really evaluate your applicant tracking system and your application process to make it simple for someone to apply on your site, really remove or reduce that friction so they're not spending 10, 20, 30 minutes filling out a lengthy application. Really focus on three or four different fields to almost treat it as a warm candidate lead, and then keep them engaged with your job board mailings, with the candidate automation like Brad talked about a little bit ago, and really use that to reactivate that database.
The last thing that I just want to touch on is new social trends. So when we think about new tools leading the staffing industry and that leading staffing firms are using, they're leaning into new social tactics. And that doesn't necessarily need to be you on TikTok and Clubhouse and Snapchat all day, every day. But I think the point here that I want to make is that these are all viable options to test and to try, given the bandwidth and the resources. And we're going to get to another slide here momentarily about sticking to what works and sticking to those tried and true principles. But always think about what else is on the horizon. Maybe Clubhouse is right for you. Maybe TikTok is right for you. You won't know until you try. And truthfully, it comes down to having those resources at your disposal and giving it a shot. Test it, look at the data, and make sure, as I've said before, and even Brad Smith mentioned it, every post has a purpose. What is your purpose on those platforms? What are you trying to achieve so that you're not there wasting your time, but you're acting with mindful purpose and mindful intentions? If it's not broke, why fix it? And I think really here, for the sake of this dialogue, guys, I want to talk about SMART goals, and I want to talk about what works and what continues to work. So Brad, briefly walk us through SMART goals, and then walk us through sort of the methodology of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, so a SMART goal, it's an acronym. So we're looking at specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So a goal needs to be specific. We need to know what we're aiming for. It needs to be measurable, so we know whether or not we hit it or whether we're on track to hit it. It needs to be attainable. So can we reach that goal? It needs to be relevant, and does it tie back to our overall business goal? And it needs to be time bound, because if you haven't set a deadline and it's not time bound, it's not a goal, it's a wish. So when we look at overall marketing strategy, we want to make sure that our marketing strategy and our tactics all are tied to SMART goals that fit with the overall company goal. In terms of if it's not broke, why fix it? Don't mess with it. I go on both sides of the fence here. So I think it makes a ton of sense to do research, look at the data, see what's working, and exploit that. So when you find a topic that is super relevant, that gets a ton of traffic, build more content around it. It's working. Don't break it, add to it. But on the flip side of that, as Brad just mentioned, you need to have a certain element of your marketing strategy that is pushing the boundary a little bit, that's trying different things. It's looking at TikTok or Clubhouse, or just recently, Matt Lozar has had a bunch of success with LinkedIn Live. So it's looking at using your marketing, using your messaging, and testing out different platforms, and then looking at the data to see what works. And then kind of to wrap it all up, it's really looking at how you can incorporate what you're learning in the digital space into your direct sales outreach, into your direct marketing, giving your salespeople the tools, the messaging, the content that they can use in the real world to close more deals.
I'm still bitter that you got access to LinkedIn Live before me. I know you saw me smiling about it when Brad mentioned that. I don't understand how you got into beta and I didn't. I'm not mad. I'm upset. It is what it is. We're going to continue on to the next question. What one tactic should you implement now? So last slide, guys. So don't take anything to the end of the presentation if there's one thing we haven't mentioned yet. Matt, let's start with you. If you had to pick one tactic that staffing and recruiting firms should be implementing right now on March 11th is today, 2021, what would that be?
You're always welcome as a guest, Brad, and you've been a guest. Never
Appreciate
forget
that.
The door is always there. But the one tactic I would implement, it's programmatic job advertising, because I think I'm a big believer, in technology, in the automation, and in the data. And programmatic job advertising using software to manage your job board spend solves all of those problems and challenges. There's other ways to do it. You could implement a system on your own and track it on your own, but I think with the way we're trying to get smarter and more efficient with everything, whether it's from how we manage our time to how we manage our spend, implementing programmatic job advertising, we've seen success where we've seen clients' applications increase by 60% and job board spend go down by 13%. The healthcare side up by 120% for a hospital staffing agency, and actually their spend went down about 6% because we're eliminating and reducing the wasted spend. And it makes sense because software does that faster than any of us can. And I think that's a tactic that would really help companies evaluate the ROI of their job board spend.
Brad, you're up, and I know that there's no marketing silver bullet, and I don't want to position it that way, but if you had a limited budget and you think there's one tactic that a staffing firm should implement right now, what is it in your case?
It's probably not going to be a surprise. It's SEO, search engine optimization. It's looking at an ongoing program to do this consistently. And I'm a big fan of content SEO. So it's looking at those long form pillar content posts. It's looking at competitors and where they're ranking and what we can do to outpace them. And it's looking at Google Search Console and our search queries to look at how we can capitalize on that and drive more traffic. And it takes some time, but once you get a few pieces of content that go viral and get featured snippets and other things, the amount of traffic that you can get is unbelievable. So I love that tactic.
And for me, if I had to lean into one tactic right now, it would be better database management. It would be thinking through your current prospect list, your client list, your past candidates, your associates on assignment. Those are all very specific databases that all need specific management, that all need specific messaging and nurture campaigns. Think through what it is that you're doing with each of those databases and further leverage the relationships that you've already built, the conversations you've already had, and further grow your relationships with those individuals. To end today, I want to make sure that you're aware of all of the resources that Haley Marketing can provide. And I, of course, want to thank Brad and Matt for joining me on today's Lunch with Haley. If you haven't yet, please make sure you subscribe to the Secrets of Staffing Success podcast on your preferred podcast player. And always at haleymarketing.com. We put out a brand new episode every Wednesday. 1 week, we'll have an interview series where our co-CEOs interview a thought leader from throughout the industry. On the off week, when there isn't an interview, Matt Lozar and myself host a show called Insights, where we bring on a team member to share our insights and what's working in digital and recruitment marketing. We also have the Lunch with Haley webinars on demand database that can be viewed at lunchwithhaley.com. Brad Smith mentioned our white papers, our ebooks, and our blog content, of course, at haleymarketing.com. We have literally thousands of blog articles that are available for you to read and consume. Please use that blog as a data hub. Go in, search for what topic you might be interested in, and please read that content. Our team is actively working on that and putting that together. If you haven't yet, we have a product demo coming up in a couple weeks here, staffing websites. It's going to be a peek behind our top performing staffing websites. You can register for that product demo by visiting lunchwithhaley.com. And again, I want to thank Brad and Matt for joining me on today's Lunch with Haley. We're going to stay on the line here for a moment or two. I know we're just coming up on an hour. We absolutely nailed that timeline, guys. But if you have questions, I know I will speak for Brad and Matt. We're happy to stay on for a couple more minutes here to answer those for you. If you're shy, you don't want to use that questions window, you could also feel free to reach out at info@haleymarketing.com, or always feel free to give us a call at 888-696-2900. I want to thank everyone for joining us today on Lunch with Haley. Like I said, we'll stay on the line here for a minute or two and stick around for any questions. Rob, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you reaching out in that window and thanking us, but we are grateful and thankful for you joining us today. Not seeing any questions come in, so I have a question for you, Matt. Are you getting another 9 holes in after work or no?
No, the weather's turned in Buffalo. That's what happens.
I
So
understand.
we are not getting any more outside time here in the Western New York area. What have you been doing, Brad, outside? You always talk about myself and Brad Smith.
Don't get caught up in fake spring. What am I doing outside today? I had the smoker going yesterday, so today probably nothing outside. It was raining a little while ago. I don't think we're doing anything outside today, but just gonna hang out and finish another productive Thursday afternoon. Guys, I'm not seeing any questions come through the chat window. So again, I want to thank you both for joining me this afternoon. I want to thank everybody for watching another episode of Lunch with Haley. Take care. Have a great afternoon. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.